Mr. Chair, it appears that the recordings have started. If you'd like, I will give instructions.
That'd be fine, Mr. Neese, please.
This is a virtual meeting of the Township Board of Supervisors. As we had for the last 14 months or so, we've been doing virtual meetings and taking public comment one of four ways. You can drop public comment off at the blue drop box in front of the building. That's the one by the main entrance going up to the library. And that's one option. During the meeting, you can raise your hand using Zoom, either through your screen or if you phoned in, there's an option to do so that way as well. If by chance you have trouble raising your hand or getting recognized, you can also send a note to public comment at newtowntownship.org. Again, that's public comment, all one word, at newtowntownship.org. Letting us know that you're wanting to speak. Please make sure you give us your screen name and your phone number so that we can properly recognize you. And make sure you please include your name and address if it's different than, well, if your name is different than the screen name, your name and then your address for the record. If by chance you just want to make public comment, we've been accepting public comment at newtowntownship.org. Again, that's public comment at newtowntownship.org. Turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Neese. The board was in executive session prior to this meeting to address one personnel and potentially four legal matters. So with that being said, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Mr. Neese, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Nawn.
I am present.
Mr. Partridge.
Here.
Ms. Roberts Lightcap.
Here.
Mr. Russo.
Here.
Mr. Altieri.
Here.
Your special counsel, your solicitor, your engineer, and your manager are here.
Thank you, Mr. Neese. For our moment of silence this evening, we are approaching Memorial Day, a very solemn and important day in the United States. So in our thoughts and our prayers this evening, let's keep in mind all those who have served this country and all those who have given the ultimate sacrifice for their country. Let's keep them in mind as we pray this evening. Okay. We have before us this evening's agenda. I'll entertain a motion for approval of the agenda or consideration of any changes.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap to approve the agenda as presented. Any further questions or discussions from members of the board on the agenda? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 As opposed or any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, next on the agenda, we have public comment for agenda items only. We have two agenda items, public comments listed at the bottom for non-agenda items, so we're going to keep them there. But at this time, I was informed that we have nothing in our various means of receiving public comment. If there's anybody that's listening that has a public comment for anything on the agenda at this point, please feel free to raise your hand to be acknowledged. Otherwise, we will move on the agenda. Seeing none, we will move on. Next on the agenda, we have the minutes from our May 10th, right? Yeah, May 10th, 2021 meeting. I'll entertain a motion for approval or consideration of any changes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the May 10th, 2021 meeting as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve the minutes from the May 10th, 2021 meeting as presented. Any further questions or discussions on the minutes? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have two presentations. The first one is a presentation on communication boards for Drexel Lodge, Brookside, and Gable Parks. And I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Altieri to take it from here. Mr. Altieri.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I'm really excited for tonight's presentation. Steve, if you can promote Julie Long, who is one of the attendees here tonight. And I don't know if there's anyone else from the school district on here. When Julie gets on, she can let me know. This is a really exciting project with this board's commitment to improving and investing in our park system here. Hey, Julie, how are you? Improving and investing in our park system here. Julie reached out knowing that we are doing those investments in our parks with this really cool idea. This is a communication board that I will allow her to present on the benefits of what it'll do for our residents here. But she reached out. I sucked up the idea right away and thought it was an amazing thing. And wanted to put it on the agenda for 3 parks here in the township. So what we're hoping for is that Julie will do her presentation tonight. All of you will be just as enthralled as I was after hearing from it, and we'll move forward with purchasing these boards at the 3 different parks. So I have obviously more to comment on after this, but I'll let Julie go right now.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me this evening. As some of you may know, my name is Julie Long, and I'm a local speech and language pathologist. I'm so excited to be able to present and talk about playground communication boards. So as you'll see on your screen, that's one of the ones we have at Culbertson Elementary School, and I'll get into more details about what that looks like at the playgrounds. So thank you. So who would use this board? As some of you may know, children diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, apraxia, or speech and language impairment often benefit from supplementing their verbal speech with what we call alternative and augmentative communication, also known as AAC. And that's one of my passions. So this playground communication board is a form of AAC. So it helps facilitate those interactions between children with communication needs and their communication partners. So that could be their parents or other peers on the playground. So now you're asking, how will it be used? As you can see on the screen, one of my little kiddos right now is kind of showing you what the board can be used for. He's identifying he's feeling happy on the playground. So children will be able to identify the playground equipment they like to use, how they're feeling and their emotions. And also it promotes social interaction between their communication partners and the children. And I can just say from the short time we've had it installed at Culbertson Elementary School, we've had numerous teachers come up that peers who wouldn't typically be playing with each other are playing with each other. It's really given a lot of dialogue on inclusion and how different people communicate and how they're all valid. So we've got a lot of great feedback and from the community, it's been tremendous support. So the next slide, you'll get to see some of my kiddos in action using the board with parent permission. So in this first slide, you'll see one of my friends identifying what he wants to do on the playground. Oh no, I'm not sure if you can hear it. He's saying, I want slide. I wasn't as enthusiastic as he was. And then in the next, oh, bummer. Well, I'll just tell you what they're saying. I've watched them a million times. And then in the second video, he's going to express how he's feeling on the playground. So he's saying, I like the playground. So letting you know how he's feeling on the playground. And then in our last slide, we have different opportunities. So this person is going to let you know what to expect next. So he's going to go up and say, I want fast. So he's letting his communication partner know what to expect to come. He's saying, I want fast. And then in this last video, one of our amazing educators is showing you what it is to model on the communication board. So she's pointing to the icon and then verbally saying it out loud. She's saying, I want, and then she's identifying what he wants on the playground. Do you want the slide? Do you want the wagon? And that's kind of what I ideally would love the adults on the playground to do for those children, to model how to use the communication board, because that helps them teach them how to use it and also facilitates that communication between each other. But yes, I'm so excited about this opportunity. I think it'll be great for the local parks.
So Julie, let's talk about the nitty gritty. What are the prices of the boards?
Sure. So the boards are $680 for the board, double-sided with the posts, and then it's $130 to ship.
We, the township, would be putting them in?
Yes, it's very simple. So the maintenance guys at Culbertson could let you know, but they just dug 2 holes and put the posts in. They said it was really easy.
I'm sure our guys can handle that.
Yeah, I'm sure the Culbertson maintenance staff, they were phenomenal, so they would give any pointers they had.
Any other board members have any comments on this?
Well, I would just like to say thank you, Julie, for coming in. I have a child that is on the spectrum, and he went through Culbertson. Actually, 3 children. One is, anyway, they've gone through Culbertson, but my son, again, is on the spectrum. So it really is, it would be very, very helpful for these children.
It's
Okay.
been great. And the district has been very supportive. Our principal, Jim Wygo, I don't know if he's on the call, our special ed director, Heather Loeb, have been phenomenal and super supportive, and with all the staff too. So all the kids have really loved it. But thank you so much for your comment.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Other than just the children that have these, are on the spectrum and have other speech problems, it does open up for other children, gives them understanding, to understand that, and it's fun for them too. And
Exactly.
I think so. I appreciate it. So thank you.
No, thank you.
I don't know that we need to do much else with this. I mean, I guess we could, if there's any input from Parks or Rec or our Public Works or anything, but I seem to think that these are the proper parks to put them at. And it doesn't seem like the price is going to be anything for us. So perhaps, Mr. Altieri, you'd like to offer a motion on this item?
I would, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make a motion to purchase 3 communication boards for Drexel Lodge, Brookside Park, and Gable Parks for a total of, I'm just going to make this easy because I don't have a calculator and I don't like to do math, a total of $680 per sign plus shipping and handling.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Russo to purchase the 3 communication boards for Drexel Lodge, Brookside, and Gable Parks, with the location, I imagine, to be determined and by our Public Works and Parks and Rec folks and things like that. So, any other questions or comments on the motion?
I don't have any questions. I just want to add, as a former school board member and now current supervisor, I love the fact that there's this communicative or collaborative approach to benefiting the children in our community, whether they're in our school district, the fact that they are residents here and that we're putting them in parks that are highly used already, and the fact that this is such a simple and inexpensive way to ensure that every child has the ability to not only communicate, but to enjoy the playground and to interact with other children, I think is great. And again, it shores up the commitment that we have here as a board of improving on our current park system. And I really want to thank you, Julie, for reaching out to me. I want to thank you for spearheading this, and I hope that you have just as much success over in Markle Township.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for being so on board with it. I really appreciate it. I'm so excited about this opportunity.
Yes, thank you, Julie, and thank you, Mr. Altieri, for bringing this to our attention. I think this is a great idea. So if there's no other questions, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yay. We did it.
Yeah. Any opposed? No, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Fantastic. All right, next presentation is that Greer Park Master Plan presentation from Joanne Conley of URDC. Mr. Neese, if you want to allow Ms. Conley to take over. Maybe.
He's coming over right now.
Ah, there we go. Okay.
Joanne, you'll need to unmute yourself.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
You can, go ahead.
Okay. So I'm Joanne Conley. I'm from Urban Research Development, and we're located in Bethlehem. So this is a short presentation of the Greer Park Master Plan that your community has been working on for more than a year now. The plan is in final draft form and is ready for submission to DCNR after public viewing and comment. Next slide. So this is the master plan. You'll notice that it includes a complete renovation of the park's hydrology. This includes an improved ecosystem and a green wildlife corridor through the park, improved accessibility walking paths, playground areas, and gathering spaces. There are 2 parking options that are being left open, 2 access options. So one of them would be the limited access, and one of them would provide some handicap spaces by the gathering pavilion. All the other elements of the park master plan would be the same regardless of which option is selected. So, and that will be determined at a later time. Next slide. So this is to implement the plan. The work was divided into financially manageable phases. This is the phasing plan. It shows 4 phases of development in the order that they might be best completed. And this is sort of based on grading and also to provide for environmental and recreational facilities within each phase. It's also important to note that there's flexibility in the order of the phases. For example, an aspect of one phase might be included in a different phase, and that'll depend on finances and how things progress. Financially manageable just means that each phase will be at least 50% funded by grants. So we've broken them down so that, say, for example, the maximum DCNR grant, your project wouldn't be more than twice that amount. Next slide. So this is phase 1. It is the complete restoration of the hydrology system in the park. And you've seen this before. It's the rerouting of Fox's Run, the creation of the open water wetland and stormwater BMP. It'll also include the riparian buffer work. There's access to the open water wetlands using universal design principles, and there'll be an interpretive watershed sign. There's also a boardwalk running across the back of that open water wetland for fishing. 3 grants have been written to support this important first step. And 3 township representatives met with State Representative Chris Quinn at his office in Media to ask him for his support of the project in the Pennsylvania legislature. And he did give that support. He liked the project a lot, and he especially liked the walking paths and the walking loops that are in it. This phase will start the walking loop. It'll get people from the parking lot down to the open water wetland. Next slide. Okay, this shows phase 2. Phase 2 will complete the wetland loop. It will include the accessibility to the middle of the park. It'll have an entrance parking expanded and a gathering space with the play area. There'll also be vehicular access of some description to the park at the center. And there'll be also, we have rain gardens that will be installed to infiltrate stormwater from the parking area. There are 2 spots along the access path for people that are mobility challenged so that they have resting places. Those will also overlook the wetlands. And those use universal design principles. So they're large bench pads. The small pavilion will also overlook the wetland, and there'll be a modest accessible play area right at the entrance. Pervious bituminous is also proposed for all the paving in the park to help infiltrate stormwater. Okay, next phase. Phase 3, this is the big phase that everybody wants to see. It's the central activity zone. There'll be 2 large playground areas. These will be designed for universal and inclusive access. This area of the park is easy to bring to ADA accessibility because it easily grades out to 2%, which you need to have for ADA access across these large playgrounds and across the pavilion surfaces too. There'll be a central gathering pavilion with picnic tables and the beginning of the playground loop path. So the path will keep all the new facilities accessible. All these areas will be interconnected by smaller pathways. Playground for young children is located closer to the central pavilion, and the playground for the older children is located farther from the central pavilion, but still within eyesight. The pavilion will be sized for 4 picnic tables as shown, and plenty of room for mobility devices to navigate through the space so they're not locked into just a place at a picnic table. The pavilion's also sited slightly off the walking paths so that anyone that's walking can feel comfortable walking past a gathering or an event at the pavilion. This space could also include a playground communications board. Next slide. Okay, and this would be the last phase of development, sort of wrapping things up. The activity lawn would be installed in this phase. The playground loop path would be completed, and the playground pavilion, just a small gazebo-like thing, would be with some benches, would be completed for parents that wanted to sit and watch playground activities if there was something going on at the larger pavilion. The riparian buffer work will be completed, and the restroom building would also be installed in this phase. The restroom building is important for use by groups. If you link the park to the circle events, people can park here and use restroom facilities, and you can also have some things going on at Greer Park. So it's important for that reason. Shade trees and evergreens would also be installed in this phase. Once everything's installed and it's laid out, you can easily see how best to fit in shade trees and evergreens. And once everything is established, some of the earlier phase plant material is established, you can devote more time to making sure that the specimen shade trees and evergreens get watered. Okay, and next slide, sorry. No more phases. So this is what you've accomplished. You've developed options for play equipment and trails. You have 3 play areas, 2 loop trails, and connections to future trails, as well as the neighborhood. You've improved the ecology of the pond, the wetlands, and Fox's Run. You've protected and enhanced the environmental resiliency at the park, and that will benefit water quality and habitat downstream. Improving access to the park and facilities, and building a welcoming community space. You're providing improved access for the disabled, physically, mentally, visually, and hearing impaired visitors at Greer Park. And by doing that, you're building a vibrant and welcoming neighborhood park. Next slide. And most importantly, community engagement and volunteerism. You've come together as a community, and your enthusiasm and motivation will keep this project going till it's completed. And we'd like to thank everyone who participated in making this plan a success. Next slide. And are there any questions or comments?
Any board members have any questions or comments for Joanne?
I think great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think Joanne and her team really have gone above and beyond on this project. You know, that has been a sentiment that has been echoed by Wade Pollock, who's the chair of this committee, and others. So, Joanne, I want to thank you for working with us. And as you said, bring everybody together for this project.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a great project, and hopefully we'll be able to continue working on this.
Mr. Neese, we have 2 agenda items further down on this particular presentation. I'm wondering if we should just take them now while Joanne's here and online and get these out of the way, if that works.
That would be great, because then Joanne would know what steps need to be taken from this, so that we can get this over to DCNR for their review, and then back to you for final review.
All right, well, the first item is consider accepting the draft Greer Park Master Plan, which we've all just seen a presentation on, for submission to DCNR. Would anybody like to entertain a motion on that?
Yeah, so move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Russo, to accept the draft Greer Park Master Plan and submit same to DCNR. Any further comments or questions from members of the board on this particular item?
Mr. Chairman, I would just make note that it will have to come back before you once DCNR approves it for final approval. So this is just sending it to DCNR, but it will come back to you for final approval.
This is after DCNR looks at it, or no?
That's after DCNR.
Right,
gives
yeah,
their-
that's okay. All right. So noted. There's no further questions or comments on this item. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Fantastic. All right, the next item is consider approving a commitment letter to DCED, confirming the township commitment of $438,000 for the Greer Park Master Plan Phase 1 project. And there's a presentation along with that. Mr. Neese, I will turn it over to you.
So, Mr. Chairman, yeah, I'm going to go through this pretty quickly just to kind of let you know where we are. So if we can go to the next slide, please. If you remember right, we applied for 3 grants. We applied for one with Fish and Wildlife, one with DCNR, and one with DCED. I actually believe that this should have been DCNR, or anyway. So the 3 grants that are here, and then there's a township match of $163,000, and then finally it gives you a total for this project of $902,000. So if by chance Fish and Wildlife did not commit to the 275, we're being asked, would we commit to the 275 to move the project forward? Thus the reason for the request to commit to $430,000. What this would do is it would give us an opportunity the Fish and Wildlife is the quicker of the grants. If by chance we don't get it, we would have an opportunity to go out for other grants to help match during that, because DCNR and DCD grant cycles longer. Fish and Wildlife is limited to 2 years. So for construction. So there are some other options, but in order for DCED and DCNR or DCED to move forward with our grant application, they're asking if we're willing to commit to the difference. And so that's the next slide that you can see down. If we can click on that, please. And you would see that the township makes up that difference of the first grant and still has the match down below. And if we go to the last slide, you can see that it's the added together to 483. So if the township's willing to do that, we need to give them a letter to DCED with their grant application, because they're asking for it.
Okay, so all we're doing is all we're voting on is a letter of commitment to DCED to say that if we don't get the Fish and Wildlife grant, we'll still move forward. Is that as I understand it?
That is correct.
And according to your slide here, we have $300,000 so far set aside. In a worst case scenario, we'd have to come up with another $138,000.
That is correct.
And
I said DCED, the letter's actually DCNR.
yeah, I see that now on the comments there. Thank you, Joanne.
No problem.
If we don't get the grant, there, your little star there at the bottom, we don't get the DCED grant, then we're not going to move ahead anyway, right?
That would be correct. Or the DCNR grant.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Neese on this? Would anybody like to offer a motion to send the letter to DCNR along with our application committing us to the funds if we somehow don't get the Fish and Wildlife grant?
So moved. So
There's a
moved.
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap to forward a letter to DCNR confirming our commitment for the project. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So we're good to go. Let's get this project moving. Let's go get some money.
Good job.
All right. Any other questions on this? If not, we'll move ahead. That was easy. All right. Item 10. We have reports. We have reports from various folks in our packets. I will read the report, or read the names one by one. If anybody has any questions for those particular folks, assuming they're online, we can ask them, or they have anything to offer, that's fine. Otherwise, we'll move ahead. Our first report is a report from Chief Lunn for our police department. If anybody has any questions for Chief, or the Chief has any additions, please speak now. Second report is from our fire department, Chief Everlof. Likewise, if any board members have any questions for Chief Everlof, or if Chief Everlof has anything to add, that's fine. And of course, Chief Everlof has his hand up. So Mr. Neese, if you could allow Mr. Everlof the opportunity to speak with us, we'd be happy to hear from him.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just wanted to, in addition to my report, I just wanted to, hold on. I wanted to share a little bit. I guess everybody knows by now we had a rather large fire down in Green Countrie on the 14th of May at 12 noon. We were dispatched to 204 East Chelsea Circle for a building fire with reported people trapped. It was a really well advanced fire. By the time we got there, we had heavy smoke, and I mean, evidently or eventually within probably 5 minutes, the fire broke through the roof. The building's essentially, it houses 8 units. Within the 8, 4 were heavily involved in fire. So 4 families are without homes right now. But I wanted to take a moment to recognize our first responders for their outstanding efforts. It was really a cooperative effort from the time that we responded to the time that we left the scene. I really do want to thank our fire police, the EMS, the police department, and the fire marshal's office for everything that everybody did on that day. We were very fortunate. We had our paid staff in station to do training on our new ladder truck, and I call it the perfect storm because we were fortunate to roll out the door with 3 fully staffed pieces of apparatus. Our engine, our rescue, and our ladder truck was fully staffed, and we probably arrived on location within 5 to 7 minutes. So we were able to put water on the fire rather quickly. But we turned out 22 members on a Friday afternoon at 12 noon. So very pleased with our response, with our neighboring fire companies' responses. We were assisted by the Radnor Fire Company, the Berwyn Fire Company, the Broomall Fire Company, the Media Fire Company. Brookline and Goshen were in station for cover, and we pulled them into the scene. We also had Garrett for Drexel Hill, who provides rapid intervention coverage. That's basically standby coverage in the event that a firefighter goes down inside the building. They're our rescue team. We also had Bonaire Fire Company, who provided air bank support, fill up air bottles. I think they filled up 32 bottles for us today. And we're also assisted by Riddle EMS. They had Chief Keith Laws was on scene along with 2 Riddle EMS units, Berwyn EMS, and Marple Township rehab unit. So overall, it was a great response by our personnel. We managed to limit it to 4 out of 8 homes. It's fortunate, but it's unfortunate for the residents that lost everything. So please keep their families in your prayers. But while we're talking about that, I wanted to kind of share our fund drive information. So the fund drive got rolled out on the 1st of April, or the first week of April. And out of 5,030 residents, 85 had contributed, roughly $6,700. Out of 1,327 apartment dwellers, 3 had contributed for a total of $170. Out of 719 businesses, 1 contributed for a total of $250. And non-resident owners, out of 298, we had 3 that contributed for a total of $145. So in total, since the beginning of April, we've collected $7,276. So as you can see, with the services that we provide, The donations and the fund drive is critical on our path for really keeping our organization, in operation. So hopefully this word gets out to our residents and our business owners that your financial support is greatly needed and it's much appreciated. And that's my report.
Thank you, Chief Everlof. Glad to hear we did so well with response to the fire. You guys do a great job. I guess I'm extremely dismayed at the numbers regarding the fund drive. Remind everyone that's online and anyone that might watch this presentation in the future. It is a volunteer fire company. It's not the township sponsored. The township doesn't even fund a quarter of it. Okay, this fire department exists on the funding from you and me. So the 80 some odd residents that are contributing are apparently the only ones that are paying for fire service for the rest of the few thousand people in town right now. That's kind of ridiculous. Everyone needs to make a contribution. Every household needs to make a contribution. I mean, the reality of the situation is if you don't make a contribution, well, a few years from now, you're going to be making a contribution through your taxes and a rather hefty one at that. So, we've always maintained that we'd like to keep this as a volunteer fire department. And in order to do that, they rely on the donations to do that. We obviously they're not paying anybody, but there is equipment expenses, there's needs, there's heating, lighting, there's the equipment itself. All this is critical and we need to get everybody to contribute to make that happen. So I have no words. I can't understand why people aren't contributing, but I hope if you're online and listening to this, if you haven't written a check, you'll go do so now because this needs to happen. This has to happen or else we are going to be faced with the prospects of making this a municipally operated fire department and everyone's going to get paid to do it. And that's going to cost a heck of a lot of money. So I don't know if anybody else wants to comment on that or not. All right. Thank you very much, Chief. Hopefully you can talk to us next month and tell us you got better news and got $1 million in. All right, next on the agenda, we have a report from our Public Works Director, George Sharretts. I don't know if anybody has any questions for Mr. Sharretts or if Mr. Sharretts would like to offer anything in addition to his report. All right, hearing nothing, we'll move on. Next on the agenda, we have, Andy's not online, but we do have the report from our codes officer, Andy Rezchek. We have a report from our finance director, Mr. LaFiata. I don't know, Mr. LaFiata is of course online. If anybody has any questions for Rich or if Rich has anything to add. We do have a report from our library director, Arlene Caruso. Arlene is online. I don't know, again, if anyone has anything to add or if Arlene has anything to addition or anything like that. And then finally, we have a report from our township engineer, Eileen Nelson. And Eileen does have a township storm sewer map there, and I'm sure she wants to explain that to us.
Can I actually ask a question for Arlene real quick?
Oh, sure.
Sorry, I couldn't get off mute fast enough. Is Arlene on?
Yeah, she's listed as a participant.
Okay. Arlene, just a quick question. I know that you say in here under miscellaneous that the library staff will be fully vaccinated by the end of May. Just curious if you have a timeline on when the library will open up.
Yeah, we're opening June 1st.
Okay.
On limited hours to begin with, and then we'll roll out more hours as time goes by.
Perfect. And I'm guessing that'll be posted on Facebook?
It is on Facebook.
Okay. Shame on me. All right. Perfect. Thank you, Arlene.
Sure thing.
Excellent news. Excellent news. Now we'll move on to Eileen Nelson, our township engineer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With respect to items from the report, I apologize for not having a written report, but I was informed that the Clearbrook culvert punch list was completed late last week. I will be checking the site and expect to have the final pay request on the agenda for the first June meeting. Earls Lake, I did forward some comments and requests from the EAC to the engineer of record, and have not received a response to date. I followed up with them today. And with respect to the drainage studies, I did receive some questions from Supervisor Altieri. I don't know if everyone else had the opportunity to go through. I know Chairman Nawn had indicated he had no questions from the last meeting. But one of the things that Leonard and I discussed today was the picture that it shows when you look at the township's storm sewer mapping with respect to these drainage studies. It's a rather sharp contrast when you look at the age of a development as to how it was constructed. So if I could get control, I can show you in the storm sewer mapping what I'm referring to. Whoops.
Whoa.
Now, where did it go?
Eileen, you should be able to share your screen.
Okay. Got it. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
Is there any way to make it a little bigger?
There is. Does that help? What I wanted to kind of drive home in this development that took place somewhere around the early 90s, late 80s, Harrison Drive, you can see the extent of storm sewer throughout the development and the roadway system, collecting everything and conveying it to some control facilities that were provided throughout the development. There are some best management practices that even for the time were fairly ahead of themselves, I guess. Mason's Way is a newer street where you can see a lot. And then when you look at Dunmanning Road, there's pretty much storm sewer at the low point, and that's it. Of the two areas that were studied, which are before the supervisors now for questions. I'll get
Where was that,
to-
Harrison Estates?
I'm sorry, excuse me?
Was that Harrison Estates?
Yes. Here you go. Tyson, Horton, Lewis, and Cayley. Again, pretty much limited to low point collection and conveyance through the development. And the age of this development did not even have a requirement for stormwater management of any kind. So I know a lot of people believe that the expansion to the Culbertson School caused all the problems that happened through those rain events. But in effect, the infrastructure that exists because of the age of the development is actually more the issue than any small contributing factor. I mean, it was very noticeable because it was bare earth and mud was rushing through everyone's yards, but the drainage area splits about the middle of Culbertson. So this entire area being houses and streets and driveways and sheds and little patios without stormwater management of any kind are really one of the reasons we have the circumstance we do with the lack of capacity in the system. You can take a look at another more recent development.
Eileen, just let me interrupt for a second. What was also neat about that last screen was you had both 252 and Goshen Road on there, both state highways. You can see just on those state highways, the extent of stormwater management structures that exist in conjunction with the state highway as compared to all the roads there that are in the township. I mean, there's not a lot of comparison.
It's a sharp contrast, very much so. Look down here at Springton Estates or Springton Point. This is Troop Farm Road. And just throughout the development, you almost don't see a segment of road that doesn't have storm sewer associated with it. And yet the older developments where we are having problems almost have none. The avenues, you can see there's limited amounts in spotty areas. So it's just trying to give an indication of what we're up against with the age of some of the developments in the community, and have to start somewhere. But if anyone else has any other questions about the drainage study drafts that they were provided, so that I can wrap them up and get them presented, that would be helpful.
Anybody have any questions for our township engineer?
I don't have any questions, but Eileen, that was extremely helpful. And I wish that there was more people in the public that were on here to listen to, because as you read these, right, you know, they're voluminous, and you know, you highlighted two of the most common themes that people kept saying over and over again, is that it's being caused from overdevelopment and it's being caused from culvertson in these two areas in particular. And some of the individuals, you know, who are commenting on that, they're also ones who might have clear cut their land and don't realize that everything has a giant impact into this. But what you highlighted right there, talking about the fact that, you know, these neighborhoods were all constructed before the act came online, where it required stormwater management, you know, I think is extremely helpful for people to understand. Now, obviously, you ended it perfectly well as well, where you said we have to start somewhere. So it's going to be a monumental task. I don't want anyone out there to think that we're going to be able to snap our fingers and have this fixed. But I think it's important that we start this process.
Right. Well, to Supervisor Altieri's point, Eileen, you know, you gave us projected numbers. If we, you know, tackled these two areas at one time, is there, you know, like, how do you eat an elephant? A piece by piece, right? Little pieces. Is there phases that we could do in some of these neighborhoods to kind of start this process, but, you know, not the whole elephant? Do you see what I'm asking?
I do know what you're asking. I have not done that type of analysis. I was looking to try and get what the whole elephant was first.
Right.
Because again, not knowing what we have to start with, it could always be tailored to be incremental, sections at a time. But as for right now, they've just been, I called it my 20,000 foot flight over the area to get a good idea of what's lacking, so that we can see the volume that we need to address. But that can be broken down in a number of ways.
So Eileen, in this particular, here we have a lot of creeks in the Echo Valley, and they're all being used for drainage. Then there's limited structures. You have very limited anything shown on here.
That's the extent of the storm sewer system in Echo Valley, primarily just to drain those stream channels under the road system. There's a number of them that are starting to fail. I've had several meetings with Harry Robinson about some of the repair work that will need to be done. But yeah, this is the limit of the storm sewers. I think the Echo Valley development dates back to about 1959.
Right.
Zero stormwater management, conveyance, and collection at low points. Again,
the other thing though is when you just showed Cayley Road in that area over there, it's similar though, because they all sort of like this development, all the water goes to people's backyards into, like, I don't know if you call them streams or brooks or what do you call them, but it's the same thing, and they're all eroding away. And that was another complaint I heard from a lot of the neighbors.
yes. It's pretty rampant throughout the township.
Okay.
Any other questions for our engineer? Thank you very, Eileen, very enlightening. It was a contrast is the proper way terminology for that. That's, I think you showed, got your point across well. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, moving on, brings us to the report of our township manager, Mr. Neese.
Yes, I have basically two things this evening. One is the county has reached out to us regarding the funding of the TIP project that we had agreed to a couple years back. I just wanted to make sure that the board was still in agreement to go forward and try to get the TIP funding for that project.
Anytime we can get money, I think that's a great idea.
Yep. All right. The second piece that I'd like to talk about, Arlene kind of gave away that the library is opening on June 1st. So will the township building. Yeah, so we will be opening up and being prepared to continue to serve people as we have. We will be, for at least for the first few weeks, we're going to offer both methods of people being able to drop things off at the vestibule like they have in the past, if that's how they're most comfortable. But we will also have the office open. We will have the window open, and you can go up to the window for both the police department and the administrative/codes area.
Fantastic. Any questions for Mr. Neese? All righty, let's move right along. Let's pay some bills. All right, under item 11, we have 4 items for payment. They're different things, so we'll take them separately. Item 11.1 is to consider approving a $407 escrow release payment to Jason LaRoge at 330 Morton Street for a completed grading project.
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap, seconded by Supervisor Partridge to approve item 11.1. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next is item 11.2. Consider approving the $1,032.50 escrow release payment to Paulina Pavloja at 62 Barron Road for a completed grading project.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve item 11.2. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next is 11.3, considering approving the $1,092.75 escrow release payment to Matthew Braunbeck at 3869 Gradyville Road for a completed grading project.
So moved.
Moved.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor of approving item 11.3, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Finally, under payments, item 11.4, consider approving the $1,500 escrow release payment to Ann Wright at 3404 Horton Road for a completed grading project.
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap, seconded by Supervisor Partridge to approve item 11.4. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda is bills, or next on the agenda is bills. We have one item under bills. I will make a motion that we approve the bills on the check register dated May 24th, 2021 in the amount of $215,000, $215,375.66. I had the opportunity to review the bills before this meeting, and that is my motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was made by myself, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve the item on to approve the bills, item 12.1. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda, item 13 and 14 both have to deal with Episcopal Academy. The first is an item to disturbance of steep slopes, and then we have a land development approval if we get through the first item. So I will turn this over to, I don't know if it's Mr. Neese or Mr. Sakura or the folks at Episcopal.
Well, I could tee it up for us, Mr. Nawn.
I think that'd be great, Mr. Sakura. Go ahead.
So this is Episcopal Academy exists in a residential neighborhood by special exception in accordance with our zoning code. They have a relatively small project that does not involve changing the number of employees, other personnel, or students. It's related solely to their southern entrance near the circle at St. David's Road and Route 252. They want to put in a gatehouse, a security gate, and about 36 parking spots. Because there is some steep slope disturbance, they need conditional use approval. Our code allows for what they wish to do as long as they stay under a total for their entire campus under 15% disturbance of their steep slope. They were previously at about 12.2. They want to disturb an additional 2,700 square feet out of this 363,000 square feet that exists. It would still stay under 13%. So the only issue that I think was really before us was stormwater management. That was cleared up. And so they're here today to seek the conditional use approval for the disturbance of the steep slope to allow these 36 parking spaces. And then if that's permitted, then they'll want to go to the land development to actually get approval to build that and the gatehouse and the traffic controls and the stormwater management facilities. And Chester Valley Engineers has been doing the work, so I'm sure somebody's here to walk us through it. And Eileen and I are here for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Shakur. That tees it up nicely. I guess this is a hearing, so we'll convene the hearing first. I noticed Mr. Petroza was promoted to a panelist, so I'm assuming he is going to speak on behalf of the Episcopal Academy.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Take it away, Don.
Thank you. Good evening. Don Petrosa representing the Episcopal Academy with respect to a preliminary final land development plan application and the conditional use application, which is the subject of this particular hearing. The conditional use application, as Mr. Sikora indicated, relates to a minor encroachment into an area of steep slopes by the proposed parking area. So we'll do obviously this is the conditional use hearing, and then following item, that's 13.1 on the agenda, 14.1 is the land development application. By way of general background, and I think Rich gave you a good summary of what is involved, but the project overall, just so it's not in a total vacuum, includes some proposed improvements at the southern or main entrance to the campus and along Bishop White Drive, a small welcome center. And this welcome center itself, the building, is about the size of half a parking space under the township's ordinance. It's around 100 square feet. There's a little bit more of an overhang, but I mean, the building itself is really about 100 square feet. And as Rich said, it will have a gate there as well. It's set back over 400 feet from the entrance, about 415, 420 feet from the entrance. And the reason that we're here for the conditional use is that the parking area, a very small portion of it, 2,700 square feet, extends into the area of steep slopes. And the use is permitted by conditional use pursuant to 134-7B2 of the Township Code. There's no very steep slope disturbance at all, and we comply with the permitted area of steep slope disturbance or maximum disturbed area. There's a steep slope disturbance table, a summary sheet on sheet 1, but it's very short, and I can, whether you have that sheet up or not, I can just tell you what it says. It shows that the ordinance allows 15% steep slope disturbance, that existing, as Mr. Sikora indicated, is about 12.21%. And the new steep slope disturbance area is 2,700 square feet, which would bring the total of all steep disturbance on the site for the Episcopal Academy to 12.95%, still well under the 15% that's permitted by the ordinance. I think what happened here, it's not on this particular plan that's up. We submitted this on May 10th. On May 11th, we submitted a modified one, which has a little table up here that provides the information. We called it a steep slope disturbance table. But it would be right in this area on the revised plan, which I think is also in the materials, but I realize it's not that easy to find it right now.
We do have, that's what I reviewed.
Yeah, okay. The proposed parking lot should alleviate an existing parking shortage when there are multiple athletic events taking place at the same time. At present, I'm told that some people have actually parked along 252, and this should alleviate that problem. We received a review letter from the township engineer and from the fire marshal. The township engineers is May 24th, 2021. Fire marshal is May 14th, 2021, and there are no issues. The comments in there are will complies, and there are actually very few comments in there. They're very clean letters. We appeared before the Township Planning Commission on April 29th and received a unanimous recommendation of approval of the conditional use application as well as the land development application. We'd very much like to get the work done over the summer while school is not in session, so we're naturally somewhat anxious to proceed. What I would like to do is to call on Rick Stratton in a minute to review the steep slope and stormwater management issues. And then when we get to the land development part of this, assuming we do get to the land development part, we will show you, the architect is here and he can show you some images of what the entrance features look like and what the welcome center looks like also. I can mention that we are going to comply with the township stormwater management ordinance, erosion sedimentation control requirements, and also the subdivision and land development requirements. With regard to the subdivision land development requirements, we're asking for 3 waivers. 2 of them are the very typical waivers, which one relates to submitting preliminary final plan instead of 2 separate phases. Another one relates to HDPE pipe instead of reinforced concrete pipe. And the third one, which is not as common as the other 2, is to allow some of the plantings to be provided more than 20 feet from the welcome center. And the reason for that is the welcome center is going to be in the center of Bishop White Drive. And as I say, it's a very small building. So we can't, some of the plantings, we're putting them in the parking area, but some of them are going to be more than 20 feet away from this little building. And so that's the other waiver that we requested and that the Planning Commission recommended. So with the board's permission, unless you have any questions, I would indicate that we did submit a deed for the property showing standing of Episcopal Academy to make the application, and we submitted the whole plan set. So if you want, we want to consider those as exhibits, we can consider the deed A1 and the plan set A2. But with the board's permission, I'd like to call Rick Stratton to address the steep slope and stormwater management, sedimentation, erosion control issues.
That's fine, Don. Again, I want to keep them separately. So let's, as long as Rick's comments have to deal primarily with the conditional use aspects, that's fine.
Yes. Yes, I agree.
And I see his
around
face. He's got a tie on, so. Good to go. Go ahead, Rich.
But does he have to be sworn in there, John?
Probably. That'd probably be a really good idea. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Want me to do that there? Sir, do you swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Tom.
All right, sure, not a problem.
Go ahead, Rich.
Rick, would you please state your name and business address?
Richard Stratton, and I'm employed with Chester Valley Engineers at 83 Chestnut Road in Paoli, PA 19301.
And you've previously testified before many boards, including this board and the other township zoning hearing board, planning commission, and so forth.
Yes.
And you've been recognized as an expert in those cases.
Yes, I have.
Mr. Petrosa, we are well familiar with Mr. Stratton's credentials, and he has testified for this applicant and others before the council. We'll accept him as an expert.
Thank you very much. Mr. Stratton, approximately what size is the Episcopal Academy campus?
It's about 124 acres. I think it's 123.9.
Okay. Have you reviewed Chapter 134 slope conservation of the Township Code and the standards and criteria for approval of conditional uses in Article 4 of the zoning ordinance?
Yes, I have.
In your opinion, are those provisions and standards met where relevant in our application for conditional use approval?
Yes, they are.
Now, would you please review the steep slope summary table, steep slope disturbance summary table on sheet 1 of 12 on the revised sheet 1 of 12?
Sure. On the cover sheet of the plans submitted about 2 weeks ago to the township, we summarized the total amount of steep slopes that are on the campus. These are naturally occurring steep slopes. And we've taken account at how many have been disturbed to date. So since the campus has been constructed, 12.21% of those total steep slopes have been disturbed. This project proposes to disturb about 2,701 more square feet of those steep slopes. So now the total goes from 2.21% up to 12.95%. And this is under the allowable 15%.
Okay. And the steep slopes, of course, are between 15% and up to 25%, but less than 25%.
Correct.
Okay. And basically, you're talking about for steep slopes, the ordinance indicates at 134-5 that it's those areas with a difference in elevation of 7.5 feet over a horizontal distance of 50 feet.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, section 134-8 is the section that allows 15% maximum permissible disturbed area of steep slopes. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, we requested conditional use approval to allow a small portion of the proposed parking area to be in an area of steep slopes. And I guess the grading plan, if anybody was interested in seeing where that area is, shows the steep slope area and shows the encroachment into the steep slopes, does it not? I think it.
Correct.
Sheet 4.
One more sheet down.
Yeah.
That's it. Well, this plan is actually a version from about a month and a half ago. The parking lot is slightly larger than this now and further encroaches, but the percentages I spoke about just a few moments ago still apply here. So you see the shaded area just north of the proposed parking lot. The parking lot itself and some of the grading uphill of it is necessary to construct this parking lot at a reasonable grade, and therefore we are disturbing some of the steep slopes, those shaded areas on this plan.
Just to clarify, the plans that we submitted on May 10th do accurately show the steep slope area, do they not?
They do.
Okay, so these are the plans that were originally submitted that are up on the screen. All right. Now, and section 134-B2 is the section that allows this use in steep slopes by conditional use.
Yes.
Among several subsections apply, but among others, it allows uses that are permitted in the underlying zoning district. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
And the entire school is a permitted use. It was permitted by special exception, but the entire school and everything about it is a permitted use in this district, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, in your opinion, will abutting and neighboring properties be adversely affected by possible runoff or erosion from the proposed parking in the steep slope area?
No, they will not.
And could you please explain your answer?
Sure. There is a proposed stormwater management system for the additional parking here. There's drainage inlets, which will capture runoff from the proposed parking and the entrance and the access drive. These inlets all feed into a brand new underground stormwater system, which will let the collected stormwater absorb into, or infiltrate back into the ground.
Okay. And again, that stormwater management system is shown on the plans revised May 10th, 2021, which were submitted.
Yes, on the May 10th plans, correct.
And those are the plans that the township engineer reviewed in the May 24th, 2021 Stantec review letter. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And I think there was only one stormwater management related comment, and it had to do with, well, why don't you describe what the one comment was?
Sure. There was one comment related to stormwater, and that was requesting that the brand new drainage inlets are outfitted with inlet filters or permanent filters to keep sediment and debris, out of the system and out of the waterways. So those filters, that is a will comply. We will incorporate a detail and require that all new inlets be fitted with inlet filters.
Okay. Now, can you please talk a little bit about erosion and sedimentation control measures that will be taken?
Yes, during construction, the waterways and all existing drainage inlets will be protected from sedimentation. Construction entrance will be used. Silt fence will be put up to help protect migration of sediment off the site. And so the slopes themselves, after the grading is done, we will install some erosion control matting over the slopes, the man-made slopes that are built to help protect that earth and let the vegetation grow. In addition, some trees are being planted along the perimeter of the parking, which will also help stabilize the soil.
And those are also shown on the revised plans?
Yes.
Okay. Will the proposed development comply with the township's sedimentation and erosion control and stormwater management requirements?
Yes.
And also with the subdivision and land development ordinance, except for the 3 waivers that we mentioned?
Yes, the 3 waivers, correct.
Okay. Now, will sound engineering practices be utilized in building the portion of the parking lot which was located in the steep slope area?
Yes.
Right. Do you believe that there will be any harm to the health, safety, comfort, convenience, or general welfare of the public or residents in the area as a result of this minor incursion into the steep slope area?
I do not believe there'll be any harm.
And I think you already mentioned that the May 24th, 2021 Stantec letter, the few comments that there are all will comply?
Yes, will comply.
And also the fire marshal's reviewed it and he has no negative comments about it at all?
That's correct.
All right. And is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I think that covers it.
Okay. Those are all the questions I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Petrosa. Are you offering any other witnesses or is that it?
That's it for the conditional use.
Thank you, Mr. Petrosa. Any board members have any questions for the witness regarding the conditional use, the steep slopes, things of that nature? I do have one question, and it's kind of, well, I don't want to get too far away from the steep slope issue, but being this is a conditional use, I do get to think about public health, safety, and welfare. So where I don't necessarily get that bite at the apple under the land development process. So one thing that occurs to me is that this is although not part of the steep slopes, we are putting in some type of welcome center, guardhouse, gatehouse, whatever you want to call it, on this driveway. Pre-pandemic, frankly, in the mornings, this becomes a traffic nightmare through the circle and into this particular driveway, which I believe right now is unfettered access, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, there was a temporary welcome center or gatehouse, whatever you want to call it. But you raise a good point, Mr. Chairman, and I did want to point out that the gates will, this gate at the welcome center will be in the open position at all rush hours on the campus. So that it will not be down at all in the morning rush or the afternoon rush when people are leaving. It would be between those rushes that it would be, they'd be able to monitor who was coming onto the campus, and if somebody that shouldn't be there to have them turn around and go back. But it's about 415, 420 feet back from the entrance where Bishop White Drive begins, and it will never be closed during the rush periods.
Okay. Again, that was my concern. I know we have tried, I don't want to do anything that creates even more traffic impediments there. We really want to get you people on the campus and as quickly as possible and not be backing up around Circle and up 252 and things like that. So
absolutely,
that was a concern that I had. I was not familiar that you had a temporary gatehouse structure there. So any other questions from members of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if this is the time to talk about it or if it's land development, about the landscaping, because of all the development that's going on 252. I just wanted to ask some questions about the density of the landscaping and the size of the landscaping, because we all find now that we are all getting our doctorate degrees in stormwater management, unfortunately in drainage. So, trying to mitigate as you know, and we've got a mission of 1,000 trees in the township.
Yeah.
So
I think that's questions better resolved for land.
That's fine. I'll ask that then. Thank you.
I just wanted to get out any health, safety, and welfare issues.
Yep.
And traffic.
Understood. Thank you.
Any other questions on the conditional use application? Again, keeping in mind that all we're doing at this point is considering the conditional use. We'll do land development next. Rich, anything else we need to do on our end?
I don't know if this will go, same thing with Tina. I don't know if this would go under the actual conditional use aspect of it or land development. I would suspect under conditional use, but, and this might be more of a question for Steve and or Don, but did the EAC give an opinion letter on this? I know that there was a recommendation from the Planning Commission according to Don, but did the Environmental Advisory Council provide a recommendation or an opinion on this?
I don't know. I'm not, we didn't receive one.
We did get a letter from John, pardon me for forgetting his name, from a landscape reviewer for the township. And he did have comments about the trees being removed, and we've addressed those comments and with the revised plans.
That's the township arborist, Leonard.
Thank you.
Yeah, I believe that letter is in our packet somewhere too, I think.
But Steve, do you know if the EAC?
Well, I guess the issue is, as I see it, that it's just related to the use, and the use is permitted by conditional use.
I understand that. I'm just curious of whether they opined on it or not. I mean, it's a fair, your point's fair. I'm just curious.
I haven't seen anything on it. I don't know. I mean, if they did, we would have passed it on. I haven't seen anything on it, so.
Okay.
Was there an expectation that they were on this one?
Well, I would expect that, that they are providing comment letters on all these developments, whether it's conditional use, anything else, that they're taking a more active. I know that that's what they're trying to do, take a more active role in the reviewing of these plans. I know that there was discussion before related to this at one of their meetings. I didn't know whether they got around to actually providing us a comment letter or not.
No, it's just been confirmed to me that the arborist was the only one that we got a letter in that respect.
Okay.
Okay. Which again is in the packet of 56 documents that we have. So any other questions and at this point? Mr. Sikora, is there anything else we need to do on our end to close this?
I would add as Exhibit Township 1, the proof of posting, which was in the materials provided to us, and Exhibit Township 2 would be the proof of advertising. It was in this hearing was advertised in the Daily Times on May 10th and May 17th.
And I understand the plaintiff's exhibits are the 56 documents that we already received. I don't think we need to go through all of those individually. As this is a public hearing, I suppose I need to open it up for public comment. And again, I'm going to ask those that are offering comments to restrict those comments to the conditional use elements only, the steep slopes, if you will. If there's additional comment you wish to make during the land development process, we will allow that too. All right. Not seeing any hands, I think we're ready to move forward unless there's any further questions from members of the board. If not, I know there was a memorandum of findings of fact, opinion and order in the packet. If anybody would like to take a crack at reading that, that'd be great.
What do you want, the findings of fact and the order, John?
Yes, that 3-page document, yes.
And I think all you really need to read is the order.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, so.
So who's speaking then? Is that Mr. Partridge? I don't know. I can't see anybody.
Yeah,
Yes, that's Mr.
Ed
Partridge.
Partridge, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, gotcha.
Findings of fact will be
They
issued
don't-
in writing following this.
Okay.
Okay. All right, in regards to the application for conditional use of Episcopal Academy to allow steep slope disturbance. Here's the order. Upon application of Episcopal Academy for conditional use approval to allow disturbance of approximately 2,700 square feet of steep slopes to install various improvements, including a gatehouse, 36 parking spaces, and associated facilities. Conditional use approval is hereby granted by a majority vote, subject to the following conditions. 1, the plans, documents, and testimony presented at the hearing form the basis for this decision and shall be complied with and adhered to. 2, the application shall comply with the conditions of the land development approval resolution approved in connection with the improvements that are the subject of this decision granted this day, 24th day of May, 2021 by the Board of Supervisors of the Township of Newtown, and that is my motion.
So moved.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Russo to improve the conditional use application by Episcopal Academy for the steep slopes. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, that brings us to item 14, which is the land development approval consideration.
I'm sorry. Is that it for me, John? Is that it
That's
for?
it for you, Tom. Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of the evening.
You too.
Thank you.
for being with us.
Thanks.
All right, Mr. Vertroza, moving on to the land development application. I'll allow you to give it to us again.
Okay. I think probably the easiest and most straightforward way to do this is to just have Rick review go over the plans quickly with you and show you where everything is. And then we can have Jeff Gaunt, the architect, review some images of the entrance features so you can see what that looks like, as well as images of the Welcome Center and that area.
Sounds good.
Rick?
Sure. Thanks, Don. And thank you, Board of Supervisors. Tonight, we're presenting the plan to you, which proposes some enhancements to the site's south entrance. One of those is a welcome center. And the other part of that really is 36 new parking spaces, which will provide extra parking for those busy times when there's multiple athletic events. There's also some entrance enhancements right at the site's main entrance, right along 252. Just a decorative gate, and really to help bring people into the campus. So the plans were prepared in March, first submitted in March. We went to the Planning Commission. We got some feedback there. And we submitted revised plans on May 10th. The biggest part of those revisions were to incorporate stormwater management improvements, which will handle the additional runoff, which is created by the new parking lot. The entrance drive itself is being slightly widened to accommodate this new Welcome Center building. And the entrance drive will be slightly widened. There's a sidewalk that's going to be sort of reconstructed along that new entrance drive. And I'm sorry, there's no visuals here, but I will do my best to sort of explain it. We've already seen the plans through the conditional use hearing. There will be landscaping and lighting improvements also in order to meet the township's ordinances. And there's replacement trees being proposed here to compensate for some of the existing trees that are going to be removed by construction of the parking lot. The Academy is very much interested in having these improvements built during the summer when school is not in session. So we are very eager to get your approval this evening.
I got a question. You said the trees are being removed. The total diameter of the trees being removed, is that equal with the new amount of trees being installed?
The replacements do meet the requirements, and I believe the requirements.
No, that's not what I'm asking you. I'm asking you, you're taking some significant trees away. Are the total diameter inches of the trees being removed, does it equal with the ones being replaced? So if you're taking out a 25-inch diameter tree, are you putting back numerous amount of trees to equal 25 inches, or are you just putting one for one?
We're doing more than what we're removing. And the trees being removed are, I would not say that they are significant trees. I think there were trees that were planted 10 or 15 years ago, and they're not, I wouldn't consider them, large trees.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So the stormwater management, there's 2 underground beds, which collect runoff from the parking lot, the access drive, and we're capturing that water. We're sending it underground. And for any larger events, that runoff will eventually tie into an existing stormwater basin, which is located just south of the access road. But by this proposed development, we are contributing much less runoff to that basin than what gets there today. So therefore, the stormwater management needs have been met. If I could turn it over to the project architect, I think he would be best to better describe the aesthetics of the overall project. And I think it'd be helpful for you to see the welcome center and the entrance improvements that are being proposed. So if there's a way to.
Just before we do that, we've got the Stantec review of May 24th, and I'll just try to summarize it real quickly. The first part of it just lists the waivers that we're requesting. The next part says that we're required to provide performance guarantees, which is typical of every land development. The next one mentions the conditional use that we just received. And then it mentions stormwater management. I think you covered this during the conditional use hearing. The engineer should review the plans to provide pre-treatment for water quality prior to stormwater entering the underground facility. And you've indicated we're going to do that with permanent filters. And then the last comment is the applicant will be required to submit a revised stormwater operations and maintenance agreement, as well as a fee in the amount of $3,465 made payable to Newtown Township. That's just the typical standard O&M, best management practices O&M agreement. How about the fire marshal? The fire marshal really had no outstanding comments. He was satisfied with everything. He reviewed.
Yeah, the fire marshal submitted a review letter on May 14th. He recognizes that the entrance, the welcome center will not impede the ability for an emergency vehicle to get onto the site in case there was an emergency. And there was no other comments. He recommends that care be taken during construction not to damage any fire lines that are underneath the access drive. And we will certainly make sure the contractor is careful there.
Okay. Why don't we move on to Jeff Gaunt, and he can share the images of the entrance features as well as the images of the welcome center.
Don, so we're going to cover the what happens if somebody is rejected. How does that impact the traffic? Is that going to be?
Actually, Rick can do that. We had was it TPD that looked at it, Rick?
Yeah. So a traffic engineer did review this and analyzed when the gate is closed and there's a person in the welcome center sort of monitoring traffic that's coming in. These are non-peak hours, just to make sure that there wouldn't be a backup of traffic onto 252. And we've done that. The layout and the location of the welcome center also allows for a rejection loop. So when a car comes up and that individual is not welcomed onto campus, they will be directed to turn around, and they will be able to do that through one of the existing parking lots. And we just show that a turning movement that vehicle exiting can make that maneuver and exit the site safely without any impedance.
That's an honor system though, right? That's not a force. That's not a force rejection. That's an honor system.
Well, there's a person there telling them where to go.
Yeah, but you have the gate after the guardhouse, and after the guardhouse, if that person decides to say, I'm going in anyway, they just drive on, right?
Well, campus security would be alerted at that point, and that person would be stopped later on.
Okay.
Jeff, is Jeff with us?
I'm here, Don. Yes, thank you. I can introduce myself. I assume we had some graphics that were submitted. Hopefully we can show those done. But my name is Jeff Gaunt, and I am an architect with the SLAM Collaborative Architecture Firm. We're out of Glastonbury, Connecticut. And I've been working with Episcopal Academy. Our firm has been working with them on both the master plan update for the school, and then most recently with this Welcome Center project. And certainly the project is significant for the school just in terms of its ability to not only be able to welcome folks and manage people coming onto the campus, but also to be able to create a nice front door, sort of a new front door to the campus at that south entry that was noted earlier tonight. And so it's, again, part of it is aesthetics, and I think, making an impression and sort of making that front south entry a little bit more formal of an entry, but also, the ability with the gates that are at that entry to be able to, on weekend hours or when the campus is closed, to be able to close those gates and, allow for access with folks who have card readers. So I'm not sure if, I know part of the point here is to show the graphics, but is that something that we do have some renderings of the main.
I think he's looking for them right now.
Yeah, it looks like it. Okay.
I don't know whether it's Steve or Rich, but if you on the agenda item, if you click just on the item gatehouse, it comes up because I'm looking at it right now. Just the gatehouse, yeah. See that's separate from the one above. There you go. There you go.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. So this is a view of the gates. Now this is sort of an additional view. We had some other renderings that showed the before and after, but this gives you a sense of at least the gates. We did do some revisions to the gate design from what we had originally submitted. And the intent was to try to pick up on some of the farmhouse aesthetics that the campus has utilized since it was constructed. The previous gates were a little bit more ornamental, and these are a little bit more, again, picking up on some of those farmhouse with the split rail, some of those cues. So the piers themselves, and then there are some walls that are flanking on either side of the entry. Those will be a natural stone, the Wissahickon schist, with a cast stone cap. And then, on one of the walls on the south side, we do have some lettering which will signify Episcopal Academy, and just gives a little bit more formality to this entrance. There's some crests that are in the stone piers, and the gates themselves will be an aluminum gate that is painted, and that will be operational so that, again, they can be opened through a card reader, and or if someone happens to be in the gatehouse, they'll be able to open and close those gates. But as was mentioned earlier, the gates during when the school is in operation these gates will be open, and then the gate at the gatehouse will be open during, peak hours, meaning drop off in the morning and pick up in the afternoon, so that there isn't any backup to 252. So, and then the gatehouse or welcome center itself is a 2-person operation, and there is it's essentially the same stone base that you saw on those walls, and then all around that sort of at eye level is glass for 360 degrees, so that they can get good view angles from the gatehouse itself. And then the roof is over the gatehouse, and then actually there's a little porch out in front of the gatehouse, so that
So Rich or Stephen, who's ever controlling this, I don't know if you can look at your email. I emailed you a copy of those renderings.
Oh, thank you.
yeah, I realize it's kind of hard to picture all this that I'm talking about. Sorry.
I think I know what you're talking about. I said what I believe you're talking about.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, the idea, the intent is to try to use materials that are already being used on campus and in the area, and the scale of the building. Oh, here we go.
Thank you. There we go.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Sikora. So the previous view was the existing view looking across 252 at the main entrance to the campus. And then if you go to the next slide, this is where you get a sense for those low walls that are flanking the entry and the piers that will be supporting the gates. So really just giving some formality and a new front door to the campus. You can see the lettering that will signify the Episcopal Academy. And again, just kind of cleaning things up and giving some significance to this front entry. You can go to the next slide.
Now, Jeff, these gates that are shown in here are the gates, the original ones, but they're not the ones we're using. We're using the white ones that you showed a little while ago, right?
Yeah, that's a good point, Mr. Petrosa. Thank you. These again were the initial design. And so we've modified these to look more similar to the farmhouse aesthetic that had the horizontal rails in them. And the operation of the gates will be the same. The piers and the low walls will be the same. It's just that the gate design is slightly different, similar to what you saw in the first image. So yeah, you can keep going to the next slide. So this is a view of the Welcome Center itself. As I mentioned, there's two people that are operating the Welcome Center, one sort of viewing each direction of circulation. And so good visibility across the campus, or at least in the around the Welcome Center. And then there's a small porch overhang that allows someone to kind of be out there and greeting people. If there's inclement weather, they can get onto the porch. So that's really helpful for the school. And again, folks can be addressed in both directions, both coming in and going out. And the gate will be just on the campus side of the gatehouse, and that in off-peak hours will be open and closed, allowing people to come in and out. But as I mentioned, the stone base and the windows, and then the standing seam metal roof, again, trying to just pick up on cues from the campus architecture. Go to the next slide. I think that's maybe it. And then just kind of a axonometric view of the gatehouse to give you a sense of how it operates. I think that's all I had in turn.
You go up 2 slides to whoever's controlling this. Go up to where they gave us the full view with the gates. So this is not where the Welcome Center is, right? Oh, go back that one, right? Am I correct on that? This is just one entrance.
You are correct. This is the main entrance.
This is the main entrance.
The Welcome Center is just beyond the gates that you see here, that 400 feet that Mr. Petrosa had mentioned, but it is the same entrance.
Got it.
Now, the new parking lot. Again, I think what has to happen is when people are asking for relief that I think the onus should be, Mr. Neese, the onus should be on them to provide us with a packet that can be presented. I know Zoom has been problematic, but we're kind of working in a vacuum here. Is there a way to look at the parking lot? And I think Supervisor Altieri and I are both concerned, and I think Supervisor Russo, I think we all are, with regard to landscaping and if there are islands in this parking area.
There are. Rick, can you handle that issue? Yeah, Tina, keep in mind that this parking lot it's got to be, what is it, 500 feet back almost, Rick, 450, something like that?
Yeah, this parking lot is about 500 to 700 feet away from the main entrance, depending on where you are. And
Right.
there are some existing trees in this area. I think the largest is a 12-inch cherry, which is being taken down. And so there are 8 trees being taken down to build this parking lot, and there are replacements for those trees shown on the landscaping plans.
Okay, and that's what our arborist looked at.
On
Yeah,
Hosbach, yes.
Okay.
our arborist letter is on page 131 of 320 and page 262 of 320. And
Okay.
he does note primarily that the application and their plan fulfills both chapter 158 and chapter 104 of our ordinances as it relates to the planning plan. He says that the total
Right.
amount of trees removed is 8 trees. They're all under 12-inch DBH diameter breast height. So
Okay, I see it now.
yeah,
Okay.
he got all that in there. I mean, there's no heritage trees being removed. So
Correct.
So we don't, the parking lot, and you're right, and you can't even see it the way the curve is on the driveway. So you wouldn't even see the parking lot until you're into the property.
Correct.
Okay.
Don, I got a more fundamental question, I guess.
Sure.
What's the purpose of all this? Why do we need these security gates, I guess?
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple things. One is as far as the aesthetics of the entrance, but the gates would be, as I say, the gates during the daytime in between the rush hours would be to enable them to find out who's coming onto the campus in the middle of the day. That's the purpose of those. The other gates would, it's my understanding, would be closed only when there is no Episcopal personnel on the campus. And they are typically there pretty late. I mean, don't hold me to the exact time, but I'd say Monday through Friday, they're there till close to 9 o'clock every night. And as long as there are personnel on the campus, those gates would be open. But after the last person leaves the campus, those gates would be closed. There are liability, concerns, especially after 9 o'clock at night. I think on the weekends the hours are a little different. Probably there are people there from 6 a.m. to maybe, or I'm sorry, from 8 a.m. to maybe 6 p.m. or so. So when people are on the campus, personnel are on the campus, they'd be open, but we have a responsibility, we're responsible for things that happen on our campus. And if there's no Episcopal personnel there are going to be times when they want to secure the campus so that somebody doesn't come on and get hurt and we're involved in some kind of litigation or, that sort of thing. That's basically.
So these gates are at the street then?
Yeah, there's a set of gates up here at this street, yes. And then there's a set back here.
And what's the standoff on those gates? And how does the fire department get in for the fire?
There's a Knox box.
Yeah, that's in the fire marshal's.
But how much distance from 250 or from that circle or wherever the underpass? I don't see it. I can't see the dimension. Steve, can you blow that up?
Pretty far back.
If you bear with me, I'll give you a measurement. It's
while he's checking for the measurement, then, as I understand, what you're telling us, Don, is that those gates at the main entrance there are primarily going to be open for most of the time and only closed when the campus is vacant.
Yes.
That's correct.
Knox box so that the fire company can get in there at 3 o'clock in the morning if one of your buildings is burning down or something like that.
Yes, and the interior gates will never be closed unless there are personnel manning the welcome center.
The gate is located 51 feet beyond the right-of-way line.
Barely.
It doesn't give you a lot of room for the big fire truck.
Yeah, that's our ladder truck is, I think, 45 feet long.
And they don't come with one when that truck comes.
No, they have multiple trucks.
As I say, the fire marshal did review it, and his letter indicates he's satisfied with the Knox box.
Let me ask
So
this.
then-
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mike.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Lenny.
You might as well stay on this topic because I was going to jump on something else. So go ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to understand that, are the gates in the picture, the farm gates or the wrought iron gates? And why would you submit gates that weren't the right ones for us to look at? Because I'm not sure. The one drawing showed a more modern gate, more modern walls. And then the other picture basically showed just some posts with some farm fence. So what are we getting with this addition here?
So the low walls and the stone piers are consistent in both images, and that is what you will get. And then the gates themselves are the white horizontal farmhouse looking gates that we showed in the first picture that you saw. And that design had just evolved after some discussions with the school. So we wanted to at least be able to show you what that was, but that would be the gate that, there isn't any further changes. And that, like I said, the stone walls and piers would be the same as you saw.
So it is the white 3-rail fence that you're proposing.
Correct.
Mr. Altieri, you had issues.
I just have some clarification here. So we've already established that St. David's Road and that circle is sort of a nightmare as it is in the morning. In terms of when this is starting to go under construction, what is the plan for that? I would suspect that having construction in that area is going to cause even more of a problem for the community. Are you going to be diverting traffic into one of the other entranceways, or what's the plan for that while this is being constructed?
Plan is to have construction take place during the summer months when use on the campus is much less than during the school year.
Yeah, but you have summer camps there. You have summer school. You have people using that campus, and the only way to get north entrance, the one on the Berwyn side, is if you go down to Whitehorse, go down the road, make a U-turn, come back, unless you make an illegal U-turn in. So is that going to be posted when you have these activities?
Yeah, anyone coming onto campus will be directed to the appropriate entrance. And listen, Episcopal doesn't want any traffic issues either. So it's in their best interest to have a smooth project, and they will ensure that their contractor, does that and that there's proper signage.
Okay.
Mr. Altieri, did that address your comments?
Yeah, it did. And as soon as you started answering it, I realized you already addressed it in his original introduction there. So I apologize.
Any other board members have any comments, questions for Mr. Gaunt, Mr. Stratton, or Mr. Petrosa on this matter? Eileen, do you have anything you need to add?
There was just one comment from the Delaware County Planning Department that we wanted to check on. They had a requirement for the sidewalk to be connecting to existing. And I just wanted to see if that was addressed yet.
And why is that sidewalk only 3 feet wide? Isn't a sidewalk standardly 4 feet wide?
4 feet, right?
So the sidewalks, Yeah, the existing sidewalk out there is 3 feet wide. So, we're proposing that for consistency. We're also trying to minimize disturbance and minimize impacts to other existing trees along the access drive.
So you're putting that right, that sidewalk doesn't even have a grass bumper between the street, the road entrance, whatever you want to call it. You got it right on the curb line, which is problematic. And then you have the sidewalk only 3 feet wide. So then that means they're going to be out there clearing the snow off that walk every time it snows. At the same time, there's snow plowing the snow up. Okay. I just know I've gone to events and parked in that parking lot that's existing today when they've had events there, and it's a lot of people, and the walkway in 3 feet in my mind, I don't know how that was ever approved. That's just a neighborhood with low volume has a 4 foot wide walkway, but that's just one person.
Well, your comments are well.
I don't know. It just seems to me like, I don't know how that ever got approved.
A 3 foot wide sidewalk doesn't meet ADA criteria either, so.
No, that's what I'm trying to say.
I don't know how that goes either, but again, it is a private sidewalk for the use of the campus. It's not like the public's walking on that sidewalk other than people on the
Well, they
campus.
do have handicapped people. I assume that they're allowed to go to the school there.
I would think so. But it's a good point. Any other comments, concerns, questions from members of the board? As I promised, if there's anybody in the public that would like to offer any comments or questions, now's a good time to do so. Please raise your hand and be acknowledged if you'd like to comment. I don't see anybody raising their hand. So wait. No, I spoke too soon. Miss Feeney has her hand up. Mr. Neese, if you could allow her to speak. Go ahead.
Yes, hi, good evening. Thank you for taking my time. I'm just concerned, I live at 120 Beechwood Road, Newtown Square, Pennsylvania. And, I do appreciate Episcopal as our neighbor in our community, and we value them as neighbors. I'm just worried about the perception of a gated community because Episcopal already, by its being a private academy, I wonder if we're sending a message to the community about a gated community, and are we giving the impression that an elite school such as Episcopal is even more removed from the common human, resident of our township? So I wonder, did anyone think about that perception of, being a gated community and kind of separating yourself from being a part of the community? That's just my input.
Mr. Petrosa, anything?
Well, I would just say that, as I indicated, while anything is going on the campus, while personnel are there, those gates are going to be open. It's for periods when the campus is closed that they have a responsibility to secure the campus. If somebody comes on the property and gets injured, we face potential liability. It's I don't know if Mark wants to comment on that at all. Mark, or did you have anything you want to say about that?
I don't know if he's on, Don.
Oh,
Mark is there with his hand up, but we'd have to allow him to talk, and perhaps you could introduce him for us too.
Is Mark Natero there?
Yes, he is. He's on.
Yeah, Don, I'm here.
Mark is the Chief Operating Officer of Episcopal Academy.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mark.
Thanks, Don. The intent here is not to try to gate it off any further from the community. In fact, we already have gates that we lock in the evening. They're further down the road. They're actually closer to where the guardhouse is going to be located. And so the idea was just to move those further up, again, to try to limit access in the off hours. We've had, over the course of COVID, we've had a lot of use of the fields, and there's been teams that have shown up to have practices and games that weren't authorized. So the idea here is not necessarily to keep people off campus when we usually welcome people, which there are a lot of dog walkers and people who walk through the campus regularly. We don't discourage that. It's more of just when there are no personnel on site, evening hours, late in the night, weekend hours, when we're not staffed. That's really the intent here. There's no intent to make it feel any more exclusive or anything like that.
Fair enough. Thank you, Mark. We have a hand up from a Michael Mahalo. I would bet that that's Cindy Mahalo. If Cindy, if you could introduce yourself and give us your name and address for the record, and we'll hear your question.
Hi, John. Yes, it is Cindy.
Oops, where'd she go? We seem to have lost Cindy. Oh, here she comes.
Hi, John. Can you hear me?
We can now, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yes, and it is Cindy. Sorry. Cindy Mahalo, 87 Hunters Run, Vice Chair of the Environmental Advisory Council. And I'd like to ask a couple questions about the stormwater management plan. And in looking this over and I guess hearing some comments earlier, my understanding is that the general principle is that the additional runoff from the new parking area will go into an existing wet pond retention basin. And I wondered if someone representing Episcopal could explain what adjustments have been made to ensure that the capacity of that wet pond will be able to, handle the additional runoff from the new parking area.
Sure, I can address that, Cindy. I prepared the design for the stormwater, and there is an existing stormwater pond just south of the access road into the site. And we are including a stormwater management system underneath the new parking lot to capture all the additional runoff that this project adds, and then some. And we're helping that water soak into the ground so that it doesn't go to that basin anymore. Okay.
But, Cindy, I think there was some confusion because originally we were showing it going to that basin. Is that correct, Rick?
I'm not sure what Cindy's interpretation was, but the
Well,
current design.
I had looked at a plan a few weeks ago,
Right.
some time ago, and it looked like it was all flowing like under the road into the basin. And it
That's since been changed, and now all the flow goes into an underground stormwater system. And in the event that, if that stormwater system ever gets full capacity, there is an allowance for water to go into that existing basin. But what goes into that basin will be less than what goes there today.
So you're saying that there is a structure underneath the new parking lot?
Yes, a structure of stone and pipes, which collects and captures and lets that water soak into the ground rather than go into the basin.
Okay, and I know that the requirements are that they have to meet the peak rate for a certain rainfall. What is the rainfall or the peak storm that it's currently designed to handle?
We are able to manage up to the 100-year storm, which today, the 100-year storm produces about 12 CFS. That's just a unit of measurement that we use. Today, that 100-year storm produces about 12 CFS to that existing above ground basin, the one with the water in it. After this project is built, only 9 CFS will go there. So this project will result in less stormwater leaving the site.
Okay, and when you say based on the 100-year storm, I know that with climate change and the changing rainfall patterns, that a number of experts recommend that or have cautioned that the data that is being used, the historical data, is outdated because the rainfall patterns have changed, and that new stormwater management features going forward should be constructed to a higher level, because we're having more and more of these extraordinarily high rainfall patterns where the data shows that we're getting fewer storms. Well, we're getting more storms, but we're getting more larger storms. And there are already concerns about runoff from Episcopal Academy since you've been there. We've had reports from a number of residents in the Echo Valley area, which is adjacent and downhill from your premises. It's still in the watershed and in the headwaters of Lewis Run. And we would want to make absolutely sure that this additional impervious surface does not in any way contribute to any additional water going into Lewis Run. And in fact, maybe, as you said, is constructed in such a way that it would reduce the amount of water going in.
Yeah, this project will result in less water going to Lewis Run.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Mr. Neese, we have one more hand up from a Carol Wagner. Ms. Wagner, if you could, once you get the ability to speak, if you could identify yourself, give us your name and address for the record. Maybe. Does not seem to be working. Oh, here we go.
Hey, here we go. Now can you hear me? Oh, there I am.
Yes.
Hello. Yes, my name's Carol Wagner. I am on the Shade Tree Commission of Newtown Township, and I live over on #1 Valley View Lane, right off of Media Line Road. But also I have been an employee at Haverford College, which opened in 1833. I haven't been there quite that long. Just was as another private institution, very similar to Episcopal Academy. We also have gates that we close. Well, we've had them closed for the past year now, but we have gates that we have closed every night. And there's basically three vehicle entrances. And everybody has to go around to the front one, past the gatehouse if they want to come in on off hours. And it works very nicely. I don't think anybody really considers us a gated or snobbish institution. We also, although it's not 3 feet wide, we also have a pavement right along our main road coming into campus where our sidewalk is right up against the curb. And we actually find it a lot easier to keep it plowed. So the gates are not a problem, and and I don't mind the sidewalk right up against the curb. It saves a lot of silly little mowing and string trimming in between.
Thank you, Mrs. Wagner.
No problem.
All right, I don't see any other new public comment. If there's no other board comment or questions, we do have a resolution if anyone cares to read it. If not, that's fine too, but there is a resolution. If anybody cares to offer it, we can get on the table and then we can discuss it.
If no one else does, I'll read it.
Go ahead.
Resolution number 2021-20, preliminary final and development approval, Episcopal Academy Gatehouse and parking.
I think you could probably skip down to and now therefore be it resolved.
That's where I am. And now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Newtown Township hereby resolves and conditionally approves the preliminary final plans. 2, the following waivers and or partial waivers, which must be set forth on the final recorded plans as follows. A, section 148-43B4 to allow the use of high density polyethylene piping HDPE in place of RCP in the conveyance system. RCP will be used in the basin inlet / outlet structures as required by the township engineer. B, section 148-13 to allow submission of a combined preliminary / final plan. C, 104-14B to allow some of the new required plantings that would otherwise be within 20 feet of the building to be provided for in other locations consistent with the May 10th, 2021 plan. 3, such approval is subject to developer obtaining approval from Newtown Township Municipal Authority for sanitary sewer connection and/or design if required. 4, such approval is subject to compliance with the terms and conditions of the aforementioned Township Engineer Review Letter dated May 24th, 2021, and Fire Marshal's Letter of May 14th, 2021, and the statements and representations set forth May 10th, 2021, response letter of Chester Valley Engineers, and any representations made by the developer or Chester Valley Engineers on their behalf at the Newtown Township public meeting and/or hearing on May 24th, 2021. 5, such approval is also subject to the terms and conditions outlined below, which have been agreed to between the developer and the township and which should be reflected on the final recorded plans as approved by the township engineer. Should any of the terms or conditions outlined below conflict with those outlined in the letters referenced in paragraph 4 above, the terms and conditions below shall govern. A, the developer will execute a stormwater management and maintenance agreement and contribute to the township stormwater management maintenance fund. B, total disturbance shall not exceed 1 acre unless an NPDES permit is obtained. C, the developer shall enter into a developers and financial security agreement with the township to be prepared by the township solicitor. And 6, except as otherwise set forth herein, developer shall comply in all respects with all applicable township codes, ordinances, and regulations, as well as any applicable county, state, or federal regulations, and developer must obtain all applicable township, state, county, and federal permits, approvals, and/or waivers. 7, preliminary/final approval is contingent upon payment of all outstanding professional fees, escrow replenishment within 45 days of approval, except as properly challenged in accordance with the municipality's planning code. 9, the township manager is authorized to execute the developer's agreement, financial security agreement, and stormwater agreement when prepared in a form acceptable to the township solicitor, township engineer, and township manager without further action of the board. Resolved this 24th day of May 2021 at a public meeting of the Board of Supervisors. And that's my motion.
Mr. Partridge, may I suggest an amendment, an addition based on the testimony we heard, which maybe perhaps a paragraph 10, the security gate will not be closed during areas of peak, during times of peak arrival, such that no traffic backups will occur during those times?
Yes, as you stated, we'll put that as item number 10, and I will make that my motion with that addition.
There's a second.
I'll second it.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge as read and with the addition, and seconded by Supervisor Russo. Any further comments or questions from members of the board? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome,
Thank
Don.
you.
Thank you and your team.
Thank you.
And thank you, Rich, for putting that addition in. I appreciate it.
Welcome.
All right, that moves us on. We're getting progress here now. Under new business, we have 2 items remaining. Item 15.3, consider approving the Shade Tree Commission's recommended requirements for tree protection detail as prepared by Rockwell Associates dated 2/5/2019. And there was a little copy of the tree protection detail in our packet, and there it is on the screen, and that looks awesome.
Yep.
That's a
Yep.
well-protected tree.
And I'll move that for approval.
Second it. I'll second it.
Fantastic. Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve our tree protection detail. Any further questions on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda is item 15.4. Consider approving the Shade Trees Commission recommended list of approved trees and trees to avoid dated 5/13/2021. And there's the list on there. Anybody offer a motion to approve?
Yeah, I'll move that.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Which is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap, to approve the list. It's outstanding. I guess I'll say that last fall I planted the Japanese maple, so I'm feeling pretty good right now. It's on the list. Woo! All right. I think it's great. I'm hoping that if we approve this, I'm assuming we will, that we'll get this out on the website. So anybody that is tree shopping for their property will hopefully use these trees. Any further questions or discussions on the motion?
Now, I'll just add that in addition to us getting this for our residents, that we push for the developers to start using these as well.
Yes.
So I would absolutely hope that once we approve this, that our arborist will then make sure as a comment on every review that it's one of those trees on the list, and we fix it so that we get the trees on the list, which in my experience is never usually not a problem. Most developers will put in whatever trees we tell them to, honestly. So
Just a question of how big they are, that's all.
right, exactly. Yes.
And which caliper they use.
That's it.
They measure that tree.
Use me as a height measurement, right? It's gotta be taller than me. It can't be any shorter than I am.
We did get those.
Or Russo, how's that? Yeah.
That's it. Have my height on every plan. Must be taller.
Tina, we did get those 12 footers planted, by the way.
Oh, good. Thank you, Eileen.
Okay.
All right, we're way off track.
Yep.
Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Under old business, we have one item, and this is a RFP discussion with board direction. Where do we want to go with this, folks?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yes, this is Steve. I'm back. Sorry, I got disconnected with the internet, but I did forward that list to you at the end of last week as a board. And really what we're looking for at this point is if you can give us a rough idea, particularly of any major areas that you want us to look so we can start writing the RFPs. We probably, unless you tell us to do so earlier, would want to release them more towards fall so we would get good numbers for your budget.
Right. If anybody's any comments now, great. If not, I think we need to make it we all need to sit down and figure out what we want to do and provide Steve direction at our next meeting regarding this.
Yep.
Everybody agree? Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
All right. With that, we have nothing listed under additional business. Next item would be board comment. I don't have any board members like to offer any comments. Moving along quickly, brings us to the public comment section of the meeting. We had received 2 items of public comment. One was received from, these were not agenda items. That's why the bottom one was received from April Crockett, 4100 Goshen Road. It says, good morning. Will you please add the issue of sewer waivers and connection exemptions granted at the May 3rd, 2021 Municipal Authority meeting to the agenda for tonight's evening Board of Supervisors meeting. And the second one was from a Rebecca Kovacs at 104 Springhouse Lane. I'd like to request that the sewer project, specifically as it relates to the waivers granted by municipal authority at the meeting, be placed on the agenda. So we received both of them. We acknowledge receipt of those particular public comments. Aside from those 2, are there any other members of the public that are currently online that would like to offer any comment?
Mr. Chairman, while we wait for that, do you want to talk about the next meeting, what we're doing in terms of with the governor's emergency declaration expiring?
Sure, we can do that. I don't see any public comments, so we'll close that portion of the meeting. And before we get into adjournment, I guess I am happy to announce that our next meeting will be Flag Day, June 14th, 2014, and we will be meeting live and in person. As you heard, the municipal building will be open on June 1st. So our meeting will be June 14th. Again, it will be a live meeting. We'll all be there in the building as the state has relaxed all the requirements for masks and social distancing and things like that. So we are encouraging residents to come. Along with that, while our meetings will be televised, every meeting will be televised on YouTube. we will no longer be accepting public comment via YouTube or any other format. As per our past practices and consistent with the law, and we are going to be taking public comment again in person, live and in person. So I just want to remind everybody that some of us are, yay, jumping up and down that we get to meet in person again. We think it's a great idea. And we're looking forward to seeing everybody on June 14th. I hope we have as many attendees that we've had on our online meetings that we will in our public meetings. Does that answer your question, Mr. Altieri?
Yeah, and I just wanted to highlight the fact that this is because the governor's emergency declaration is expiring. So even if we wanted to continue to do this via Zoom, we'd be violating the Sunshine Act. So it's really coming down to that. I think that we will still, though, allow public comment through email, but it just won't be, am I right on that? Maybe not.
Oh, you can always, right. We always accept public comment by emails, by letters, by dropping a note off at the township building. It just won't necessarily get on the agenda as we have, as it appears now. But please, I don't want to discourage anybody from, shoot me an email. We all have email addresses. Shoot us an email, send something to the township, send a letter. By all means, send us your comments, but it won't be handled now. If you want to be on the agenda and have your comment heard, you need to come to the meeting and give it to us in person. So.
And then, Mr. Chairman, the last thing is that we need to vote to re-advertise the historic ordinance hearing date. Originally, we had the date for June 14th. We have to have a motion to have the township re-advertise for June 28th. There was an issue with notice deadline, and so we are just pushing it back 2 weeks because the county was not able to get us on their agenda. So
good catch, and I guess I'll have our solicitors chime in with the correctness of that, but I think you are correct. I don't know.
Actually, there was no date, but when it was approved for advertising, because we were waiting to hear back from the planning boards to see what their comments were, we didn't have to give a specific date at that time, but that's what the plan is. The plan is to advertise for the 28th.
Sounds good. Mr. Altieri, would you like to offer that motion?
I would like to make a motion that we advertise the historic preservation ordinance for a hearing to take place at the Board of Supervisors meeting on Monday, June 28th, 2021.
Motion was seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Outstanding.
Mr.
All right,
Chairman,
I think that
Mr.
close. We
Mr.
are in
Chairman,
adjournment. I'd like to thank everybody for participating.
Did I hear Mr. Chair? I think I hear Steve.
yes,
We're done.
I'm sorry. I just also need permission to re-advertise all meetings from being virtual to being in person, just because there is a cost with that.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll make the motion to re-advertise the listing of the meetings in accordance with the expiration of the governor's emergency declaration.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisors Roberts Lightcap to re-advertise our meetings for live in-person meetings consistent with the governor's expiration of the governor's emergency declaration. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, can I adjourn now?
Yes.
Yep. Happy Memorial Day.
Happy Memorial Day. Thanks for participating. So everybody live and in person on June 14th. Have a great weekend. Bye, guys.